When our anniversary celebration turned into a night of lies, the midnight text that shattered 6 years of love. I heard the ping just as the waiter poured our second glass of wine, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw his phone light up with a name I'd never seen before. My name is Brynn, fake name, and I'm 29 years old, and tonight was supposed to be our anniversary celebration, not the night everything fell apart. The rooftop bar was buzzing, cello music drifting through the warm air, chandeliers glowing like fireflies, and the city skyline stretched out below us in a glittering tapestry. I wore the red dress he said made me glow, and I'd smoothed my hair into soft waves. Jonah smiled at me, his familiar half-smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He kept glancing down. "Here's to 6 years," he said, lifting his glass. The wine was rich, full-bodied, but my first sip burned going down. "To us," I replied, voice a little too bright. He hesitated before clinking my glass. I asked about his week. He cleared his throat. "Busy," he said, tapping his phone. "Lots of late nights." I remembered the empty side of the bed more nights than I could count. I pressed on. "You okay?" He smiled thinly, eyes flicking back to the screen. "I'm fine," he murmured. The saffron chicken arrived, its steam curling between us, smelling like warmth and memories of our first date. I tried to savor it, but each bite tasted hollow. I reached under the table for his hand. He pulled away, checking his phone again. My pulse thundered. "I saw the name," I said quietly, standing so fast the chair scraped against the deck. Jonah blinked up at me. "It's just someone from work," he said too quickly. I stepped back, my heels clicking on the wood floor. "I deserve better than half-truths," I whispered. The saxophone player finished a solo, and applause rippled through the terrace, oblivious to our tension. Jonah stood, awkward. "Brynn," I shook my head, voice trembling. "I need air." I strode toward the stairwell, the city lights bending around me. He followed, shouting after me. I paused at the fire escape door, rain-slick metal under my fingertips. "Tell me now," I said, voice low. Jonah's eyes filled with panic as he unlocked his phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then I saw the text that could ruin everything. I stood on that narrow fire escape, phone in hand, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear right through my chest. "My name is Brynn, fake name, and I'm 29 years old." In the faint glow of rooftop lights, the message on Jonah's screen haunted me. "Can't stop thinking about you. Tonight, everything we built threatened to crumble." The morning air was sharp when I stepped out of the diner, stomach twisted in knots. Rain had stopped, but puddles mirrored the gray sky. I tugged my coat tighter, coffee still warm in my hands, and watched Jonah scroll his phone, Emma's name blinking at the top of his screen. "Brynn," he began, voice low. My boots squished through water as I turned away. "I'm late for work," I said, though I had no intention of going. My office could wait. This felt more urgent than any deadline. He caught up to me on the sidewalk. "Please, let me explain." The city's hum felt distant, honking cars, a distant siren, and my heart drowned in suspicion. I paused under a flickering street lamp. "Explain what, Jonah? Why you vanished from our bed night after night?" He ran a hand through his damp hair. Emma's situation got worse. I didn't know how to juggle both." His voice cracked. A bus roared past, splashing water onto the curb. My cheeks burned. "You could have told me," I whispered. "I'm not a stranger." He looked at me, eyes pleading. "I thought I was protecting you from her drama." The word drama echoed like an insult. My grip on the coffee cup tightened until my knuckles whitened. "Protecting me?" I echoed, voice trembling. "By pretending you didn't care?" He flinched. "I cared about you more than anything." A gust of wind rattled the metal awning above. I shivered despite my coat. He wiped rain from his face. "She threatened something, said she'd hurt herself if I left her." My breath caught. "Why didn't you tell me that?" He looked away, gaze fixed on the wet asphalt. "I wanted to figure it out first." I shut my eyes against the sting of tears. By sneaking around at all hours? I opened them and met his gaze. He looked smaller somehow, guilt etched in every line. "I'm sorry," he said. I was scared. A horn honked behind us. We stepped onto the road, narrowly dodging a taxi. The driver shouted, and adrenaline surged through me. "Scared of what?" I demanded, voice rising. "Losing her? Losing me?" He swallowed hard. "Both." My heart twisted. My breath came in ragged gasps. A dog barked from a porch nearby. I pressed my palm to my forehead. Rain dripped off my hair, cold as ice. "Let's go back," he said softly. "We can talk it through." I hesitated, torn between love and betrayal. The street stretched empty ahead, wet, reflective, unforgiving. I nodded finally and followed him back toward my apartment. Inside, the silence was overwhelming. Our hallway light flickered, casting long shadows. I dropped my coffee mug in the sink and watched it crack against the porcelain. Jonah paced the living room, eyes darting to every corner. "I need to know everything," I said, voice firm. He halted. "I'll tell you." He took a deep breath and sank onto the couch. My pulse pounded like a drum. He started from the beginning, how Emma had called him first, tears shaking her voice, how he visited her at night to keep her from hurting herself, how he lost track of time, and us, in her crisis. I listened, numb, as he poured out details, hospital halls, whispered phone calls, secret rendezvous in empty parking garages. My chest ached as each confession fell like a hammer. The apartment smelled of stale pizza from last night's dinner, and the low hum of the fridge felt oppressive. I imagined Emma's tears, the bruise on Jonah's arm, each moment that pushed them closer. When he finished, silence swallowed us. I sank into the couch's sagging cushion. He sat beside me, but I kept my distance, just enough room for everything broken between us. "What do you want me to say?" he whispered. I closed my eyes, the city lights through the window flickering like distant embers. "I want the truth," I said. "All of it." He nodded and handed me his phone. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. The screen lit up with messages stacked 6 deep from Emma, desperate pleas, threats, and confessions I wasn't ready to read. My thumb hovered over the latest preview. "If you leave me, I'll end it." My breath caught and my world tilted. I pressed my back against the cold metal door and remembered how safe I used to feel with him. We met 5 years ago at a summer barbecue, him in a wrinkled button-down, me in a sundress stained with ketchup. I'd laughed so hard I nearly spit out my drink when he tried to flip a hamburger and sent it sailing onto the grass. From that moment, I trusted him with my worst jokes, my deepest fears, my fragile heart. After graduation, I landed a marketing job downtown. He moved in with me not long after. Our first apartment was a shoebox with strange plumbing and paper-thin walls, but we painted it in bright colors and fell asleep holding hands. The scent of my lavender shampoo and his Drakkar Noir cologne mingled in the morning light, and I believed nothing could ever go wrong. But lately, our world had narrowed to texts and half-spoken apologies. My water glass sat forgotten on the ledge beside me as I replayed every late night, overtime, call, every vague excuse he'd given. The city's hum drifted up from the street below, cars, distant sirens, laughter leaking from an after-hours club, and it sounded like judgment. I wiped a bead of sweat from my temple. I'd texted my best friend, Plea, asking her to meet me. She knew something was off. She'd called twice that week, worrying I was overreacting. I ignored her messages, feeling too exposed to answer. Instead, I crept down the rusty stairs, each step echoing my trepidation. At the bottom, rain misted the pavement. The neon sign of our favorite 24-hour diner flickered across the street, casting a pink glow on the wet sidewalk. This place held so many of our memories, greasy breakfast burritos at 2 a.m., the time we shared pancakes while arguing over what to name our future dog. If I could just sit across from him here, where nothing felt staged, I might force him to tell the truth. I pushed through the door and was greeted by the comforting aroma of frying bacon and coffee. The diner's vinyl booths and formica tables were almost empty at this hour. A tinny rock song played overhead, and a lone cook flipped orders in the kitchen. I shivered in the draft and slipped into booth 5. Moments later, Jonah appeared in the doorway, rain-soaked hair plastered to his forehead, worry shadowing his eyes. He slid into the seat opposite me without a word. The booth light made his damp cheeks shine. "I'm sorry," he began, voice husky. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, laying its screen up on the table. My pulse spiked. The screen lit with notifications, Emma's name, the unknown sender, and one from a contact labeled "Work." "Let me explain," he said. The cook called out, "Order up!" and clangs echoed. Jonah glanced at the kitchen before focusing back on me. "Emma, she's someone I've known since freshman year. We lost touch after college, but she reached out last week. She's in trouble." My stomach clenched. "Trouble how?" I asked, voice low. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "Her marriage collapsed. She hit rock bottom. I thought I could help." The waitress slid 2 mugs of coffee in front of us, steaming, dark, heavy-handed with sugar. I wrapped my hands around mine, the heat seeping into my palms. The diner smelled of syrup and old grease, cozy, familiar, yet I felt anything but at ease. Jonah stared at his mug, avoiding my eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. He looked up, pain in his gaze. "I was scared you'd be angry. We've been drifting. I didn't want to pile more on you." My breath caught. "So you lied by omission?" I asked, voice cracking. His jaw clenched. "I didn't lie, exactly." He reached for my hand, and I let him, craving the warmth I used to depend on. The diner's neon sign buzzed overhead. "Please believe me, I never meant to hurt you." His thumb brushed my knuckles. I closed my eyes, tasting the bitter tang of betrayal. The jukebox cycled to a slow ballad, and I remembered how we used to dance in this very booth, his arms wrapped around my waist. My heart ached for those nights. He squeezed my hand. "I promise, I'll fix this with her, and with us." I opened my eyes, looking into his. For a flicker, I saw the boy who made me laugh, who held me when life broke me down. Then I saw the phone screen again, Emma's latest message glowing bright. "I need you here. Now." The diner door creaked, and the cook peeked around with a stack of plates. Jonah's gaze went slack. I felt the breath catch in my throat, knowing that whatever came next would change us forever. The message burned in my hand. "If you leave me, I'll end it." Jonah's phone trembled between us, its glow casting ghostly shadows on the walls of my living room. The late-night city hum drifted through the cracked window, and suddenly every siren, every honking horn felt like a warning. I pressed my back against the couch, voice hollow. "You never told me she threatened suicide." His eyes filled with remorse. "I was terrified, didn't know where else to turn." The overhead light flickered, and I flinched as though the room itself protested his secrets. I grabbed the phone. The flood of messages scrolled endlessly, Emma's desperate cries, Jonah's reassurances, his guilt-laden promises. My pulse pounded so loud I could almost hear it in my ears. I showed him the thread. "Look at this," I whispered. "You were her lifeline, and I was left in the dark." He flinched, tears glinting. "I'm sorry," he repeated, voice cracking. I swallowed down the lump in my throat. "Why didn't you ask me to help?" His gaze dropped. "I couldn't burden you with her pain." My chest tightened, rage and compassion clashing inside me. I paced the small space, sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. The stale scent of yesterday's takeout clung to the air. "You don't get to decide who carries what," I said, tone sharp. "We were supposed to be a team." He stood, stepping toward me, but I held up my hand. "Not yet." I pulled on my coat. "We need answers." He nodded, defeated. I'll take you to her." The words felt like a challenge, and I accepted them without a second thought. 10 minutes later, we stood outside the hospital where Emma was admitted. The night air was cold, bracing. The building's fluorescent windows glowed behind wire mesh glass, and a distant intercom crackled every few seconds. I felt Jonah's hand trembling at my back. Inside, the antiseptic smell hit me like a tidal wave. We signed in at the front desk, and a nurse led us down a corridor lit by harsh fluorescence. My stomach churned with guilt and fear. What would I find? A broken stranger? My broken boyfriend? Myself, caught in the middle? At Emma's room, the door swung open before we could knock. She sat up in bed, wrists wrapped in soft bandages, eyes hollow but fierce. A single window let in the pale glow of streetlights, and the room's only decoration, a faded painting of sunflowers, looked almost mocking. "Brynn," she greeted, voice surprisingly steady. Her gaze flicked from Jonah to me. "So you're the fiancé?" There was no warmth in her tone. I swallowed hard. "I'm here because I needed to understand." I stepped forward, feeling the tension tighten like a wire between us. The bedsheet rustled as Emma crossed her arms. Jonah shifted. "I told her everything," he said quietly. "About us, how I love her, but I love you more." Emma's lip curled. "You love me more?" she scoffed. "Then why did you lie?" He winced. "I thought I was helping you, not hurting anyone." The room felt suffocating, each breath filled with the sting of disinfectant and regret. Emma swung her casted arm toward me. "You left me alone to fix her crisis." My heart clamped shut. I turned to Jonah. "Is this really how you see me?" His face crumpled. I took a shaky breath. "Emma, I'm sorry you're in pain. But you can't blackmail someone's love out of them." The words rang harsh in the sterile air. Emma's eyes flashed. "Blackmail?" she repeated. "He promised to be there forever. He promised he'd never leave." Jonah's shoulders slumped. "That was stupid," he admitted. "I gave you false hope." Emma's jaw trembled. "Then why were you there at 2 a.m.? Why all the secret visits?" The nurse peeked in, eyes wide, but neither of us noticed. Jonah met Emma's gaze. "Because I couldn't stand the thought of losing you to despair." He turned to me, desperation in his eyes. "I never meant to replace you." The tension cracked wide, and I felt tears slipping free. I reached out, brushing Emma's hair from her forehead. The cast scraped against her arm, and she flinched. "You deserve real help, from people whose job it is to help, not lovers," I said softly. Emma's defiance faltered, replaced by raw exhaustion. She looked at me, then at Jonah. A distant clang of a tray cart echoed down the hall, and the overhead lights flickered again. Jonah swallowed, voice barely audible. "I'll check you into counseling tomorrow." Emma's eyes closed, relief and shame mingling on her face. I exhaled, feeling the knot in my chest loosen just a fraction. Jonah's hand found mine, and I didn't pull away. The silent truce felt fragile, like a thin glass plate teetering on the edge of a shelf. As we turned to leave, Emma's voice stopped us. "Promise me you won't leave me entirely," she whispered. Jonah hesitated, glance darting between us. I squeezed his hand, signaling him to speak the truth. His reply was soft but firm. "I promise I'll help you heal, but I won't lose myself again." The nurse cleared her throat behind us, reminding us reality was waiting outside. I stepped past Jonah into the hall, my coat brushing the cool linoleum. My chest still ached, but the weighted dread had shifted to something steely, resolve. We walked in silence toward the exit, the overhead intercom squawking its code. At the door, Jonah's phone buzzed. He glanced down, panic flaring in his pupils. I saw the latest notification light up. "We need to talk, tonight." The hospital doors slid open onto the rainy street, and I froze. Rain pelted the pavement as Jonah and I stepped out of the hospital into the neon glare of the streetlights. The night smelled of wet concrete and exhaust fumes, sharp against my nostrils. I wrapped my coat tighter, blinking as the city blurred around me. Emma's hand shook as she stared at that new message. The air in her apartment felt suffocating, heavy with years of isolation and tonight's confrontation. Jonah and I exchanged a glance, two lifelines caught in her storm. I took a slow breath, the scent of damp laundry and stale air filling my lungs. "I'll handle it," Jonah said quietly, stepping forward. He reached for her phone. Emma whipped back, eyes wide. "No," she whispered. "You always take control." Her voice cracked, raw. I felt the sting of tears in my own eyes. I knelt beside her on the threadbare rug. "Emma," I said softly, "we're not here to control you. We're here to keep you safe." My hand hovered over hers. The carpet was scratchy beneath my knees, a rough reminder of reality. She looked from me to Jonah, the conflict mirrored in her gaze. "I don't know how," she confessed, voice barely more than a breath. "I only know how to cling when I'm drowning." Her tears spilled free. Jonah closed the distance and crouched across from us. "Then let us teach you," he said. "Call me when you feel that pull. Text me before you act. I'll be there." He glanced at me, pleading. "And Brynn will help too." My heart ached at his hope. She swallowed, nodding slowly. The lamp overhead flickered, and the room seemed to breathe with us. Outside, a car door slammed, punctuating the moment. Emma unlocked the phone, thumb hovering over the message from unknown. She deleted it without reading. I exhaled. Rain pattered against the window, a soft applause for our fragile accord. Jonah stood and offered Emma his arm. She took it, leaning into him. I rose, brushing dust from my jeans. "I should go," I said softly. The room felt smaller now, but calm, like the eye of a storm. Jonah rose, nodded. Emma managed a small, grateful smile. In the hallway, I hugged Jonah tight. His jacket smelled of rain and relief. "Thank you for being honest," I whispered. His lips trembled against my temple. "Thank you for standing by me," he replied. The lobby lights buzzed above as we walked down the steps together. Outside, the street was quiet, glittering wet pavement reflecting neon signs. I linked my arm through his. "We'll check on her tomorrow," I said, voice steady. He nodded, squeezing my hand. We paused at the corner. The night air was cool, scented faintly with coffee from a 24-hour shop down the block. Jonah turned to me, eyes earnest. "I'm sorry I kept you in the dark." I lifted his chin. "I forgive you. Just promise me no more secrets." He brushed a strand of damp hair from my face. "No more secrets." The streetlights cast our shadows long and slender on the sidewalk, two shapes united against whatever came next. As we headed home, I felt the familiar tremor of excitement in my chest, an ember of hope. The city hummed around us, alive with possibility. We stepped into a taxi together, and when the door clicked shut, I leaned against the window, watching raindrops race one another down the glass. Inside, Jonah reached for my hand and didn't let go. His warmth seeped through my coat, grounding me. The engine's soft purr and the lurch of the car over potholes felt like home. When we reached my building, I paused at the height of the curb. The neon open sign across the street blinked in rhythm with my heartbeat. Jonah kissed me gently on the forehead. "Good night," he whispered. "Good night," I replied, stepping onto the sidewalk. I watched him turn and walk away, his silhouette melting into the streetlights. Inside my apartment, I flipped on the lamp. The room was empty but welcoming, mine again. I slid off my coat, the fabric falling silent on the hook. I sank onto the sofa, the cushions sighing beneath me. I learned that only honesty can mend a shattered heart. Jonah fumbled with his phone, eyes darting over the screen. I glanced at him, chest tight. "What now?" I asked, voice low. His thumb hovered, as if the next tap could change everything. A taxi screeched past, splashing us with muddy water. I yanked my coat away, water dripping off the hem. Jonah rubbed at his jacket, then met my gaze. "I need to finish this," he said, voice strained. "I owe her that much closure." I hesitated, boots squelching on the sidewalk. "Closure?" I echoed. "We've already promised her help." He nodded. "But she deserves the truth, straight from me." The wind whipped his hair into his eyes, and he brushed it aside. He looked exhausted, haunted. Fine, I said, tone brittle. But I'm coming with you. He released a breath he'd been holding and led me down the street. Neon signs buzzed overhead, karaoke bars, late-night bakeries, a fried chicken joint with a flickering sign. The city felt alive around our quiet tension. We reached Emma's apartment building, an old brick facade with rusted fire escapes. The lobby smelled of damp carpet and stale perfume. Jonah pressed the buzzer. Static crackled, then Emma's voice. Come up! The elevator ride was claustrophobic, scratched metal walls and a single bare bulb that flickered. Jonah's reflection in the mirrored panel looked drawn, hollow-eyed. I gripped his arm. Be careful, I whispered. He nodded, shoulders stiff. On the third floor, Emma's door swung open before we knocked. She stood in the hallway, cast in shadow, wrists still bandaged. Her eyes were wet-rimmed but defiant. You brought her, she said, voice trembling. Jonah swallowed. I said I would. He stepped past her into the cramped apartment. I followed. The room was sparse, an unmade bed, a single lamp on a nightstand, stacks of unopened mail. The air smelled of damp laundry and old fear. Emma closed the door behind us. She wrapped her arms around herself. Go on, she said to Jonah. Say it. He took a shaky breath. Emma, he began, voice breaking. I can't keep doing this, being your secret savior, sneaking around, tearing Brynn apart. She flinched, as if struck. So you admit you lied? His face twisted. I admit I was wrong. A car horn honked outside, and the distant hum of the city reminded me how small we were in this vast, indifferent world. Emma's chest heaved. I needed you, she whispered. You promised. Jonah looked at me, pain in his eyes. I stepped forward. She doesn't need promises from a lover, I said softly, voice steady. She needs real help. Emma's glare shifted between us, confusion warring with betrayal. Real help? She repeated. I nodded. Therapy, support groups, people who won't abandon you. The lamp's light trembled as I spoke. Emma's tears fell. Jonah knelt beside her. I'll arrange everything, he vowed. I'll drive you to appointments. Emma looked at him, hope and heartbreak mingling. She opened her mouth to speak, then hesitated. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up, casting a pale glow. Emma glanced at it first, then Jonah, then me. I felt my breath catch. The sender appeared as unknown. She hesitated, thumb hovering. Maybe it's someone else, she murmured, but terror flickered in her eyes. I moved to peer over her shoulder, heart pounding. The preview read, I know you're with him. Let me in. Jonah's face paled. Emma bit her lip. The straining silence hung heavy, broken only by the city's distant rumble. My mind raced. Was this another crisis? Another secret pulling us apart? I looked at Jonah, searching his eyes for answers, but they were full of fear. Emma stared at the phone, torn between despair and defiance. The single lamp cast our shadows large against peeling wallpaper, 3 silhouettes caught in betrayal's web.